Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the FSDC webinar about career opportunities in the fintech industry. The webinar is brought to you under the Practitioner Speakers Series. So we are honored to have the founders of two well-known fintech and fintech-related companies in Hong Kong joining us today to share with you their inspiring career stories. So Mr. Fred An is the co-founder and co-CEO of Bowtie Life Insurance, the first insurance company that was granted with the first virtual license for by Hong Kong's Insurance Authority. And Mr. Victor Lam is the co-founder and chief operating officer of Genie, a financial planning and growth platform. So welcome Fred and Victor today. So for today's webinar, we'll cover questions about career prospect of the fintech industry, some lesson known and interesting facts, as well as career advice to advance your career development. And in the last session, it will be a Q&A session. So you're welcome to drop us your question in the comment box anytime during the webinar. And we'll invite our guests to share their insights on those questions in the Q&A session. So without further ado, I'd like to invite both to tell us a bit about your career, how it started, what inspired you to make a career switch from traditional industries to fintech. Perhaps Fred could share with us your experience first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. It's my honor to speak here. A bit background about myself. Again, my name is Fred. I study actuarial science in Canada. I used to work as a consulting actuary. Actually, I've been working in a number of different places. I work in Toronto, I work in Chicago, London, and Hong Kong. I like math, and in my early of my career, I get to develop my technical skills, my domain expertise. I think I was quite good at what I was doing, but something is missing. And just a bit about some of the story before we actually enter the fintech space. When I was 30, I had 2 heart surgeries. So I stayed in the hospital for 20 days. And I survived the surgery, survived the medical system, and I thought, hey, life is short, I've got to find my passion. So for me in 2015, I left my consulting jobs and started a new company with my co-founders. It's an insurance tech consulting. We used to build product for insurance company. We didn't know what we really want, but it's a good environment to learn, to understand how the fintech industry works, to train up the team and to discover the industry pain points. And we thought insurance is broken and we want to fix that. And later in 2018, there was a new virtual insurance company license. And we got a chance to set up another company to go for it. And that became the first virtual insurance company in Hong Kong, and that's Bowtie. And I would say, I thought I'm personally very proud to have this opportunity to build a new insurance company, to really define the new categories that we built every structure of the insurance company with new modern technologies. And as for the first company that we founded that just recently completed a Series B of 75 million, and now is operating in 6 different markets with more than 150 people. And I'm thanks for having me. I'm very fortunate to have a strong team and a very strong partners that I really enjoy working with, and today I'm happy to share some of my story and answer some of the questions about your career. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. So how about you, Victor? What triggers you for such a move?
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here as well. For me, I have been an entrepreneur since I basically 1 or 2 years after I graduated from university. My first job was actually at a hedge fund, and I was doing my licenses. This was in Chicago also. I know, Fred, you spent some time in Chicago. And when I was working there, the financial crisis happened. And my employer was a hedge fund, and it blew up. And I lost my job. And so my next job was I started to work for some people just as myself to be a property manager, helping them find tenants. I got a license. I was helping them fix the toilet, fixing the door. And actually it was an amazing opportunity because from one property I was managing, I was able to then manage 3 and then manage 5. And eventually we became not just managers, but buyers of properties. And this is all in America when you can buy, properties at 90% discounts. And when I was at that time, we had 3 people working in our company, and we had bought over $10 million of real estate for less than $1 million. So we were able to get the experience of finding investors, taking properties that were empty or vacant or had, like people who are not paying rent, turning them into useful properties. And that was a very enriching time for me. I ended up taking that portfolio and using it to build my next career, which was also another startup in biotech. We started another company also in the US. We it was a vascular tissue bank. We took veins from cadavers, cleaned them and processed them, and sold them to doctors for bypass surgery. And that business, after running for 4 years, we sold it for 20 million US dollars. And at that time, I was a little bit bored. I had gone to travel. I had, was playing football. I was exercising. I was not working. I was bored. But my cousin, he is my co-founder at Genie. He was working at Citibank. And he said to me, hey, Victor, I'm starting a new company. I don't want to be sitting on the trading floor, watching my job get automated by robots. I want to go out there and create a product that can help not just people, but companies really manage their finances and increase equality among, different parties. So I came back and I said, I will help you for 1 or 2 months. And 1 or 2 months has become 5 years. And it was very enriching because I was able to take my startup and entrepreneurial experience that was not in fintech and match it with my cousin who is a banker and creates a company that now helps other companies and individuals manage their finances, grow their wealth and become more successful, businesses. And this has been something that's been very exciting for me. And I thank him for tricking me to come back, but my journey is non-traditional, but I'm very happy to be here in Hong Kong building this with him.
Thank you, Victor. So both of you are really being inspired by uncertainties in life, and that leads you to a very different career path. And for both of you now, it's very successful in the fintech industry, which you both own a startup and become a founder of an innovative and prominent fintech companies. So I believe there should be something rewarding that keeps you both to stay in the fintech industry. So Fred, what are the most rewarding aspects of working in the fintech industry? Do you feel like you're making a difference in your job?
Yeah, of course. I think it's a sense of purpose. If you look at the mission of the insurance tech, right, for us is to close the protection gap, to make insurance simple, make it affordable, financial inclusions, and provide more transparency. Because insurance right now, if you look online, you can't find much information. It's still an industry where you buy from agents. And the thing that I like the most is really working with the people who are smart and share the same passion and trying to make a positive difference in the industry. If I look back, right, the question I ask myself is, do I have a job? Do I have a career or calling? When I was working as an actuary, I think it's a good profession, it's a good career, but it's really, but something is missing is really about the purpose and the passions. And to me, the fintech startup is my calling. I get to find my inspiration. It's something that I felt I meant to do. I will do that even if you don't pay me. It's something that I love and I think it's meaningful to the society. So just like Victor, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have a lot of passion. I find it very rewarding. And just a bit more context about insurance tech, right? According to the insurance authorities, even though we have more than 100,000 agents, we have so many insurance companies, we're still facing a significant protection gap of 6.9 trillion. So that means if you take the average and look at every working adult, everyone is facing 1.9 million. So what we want to do is provide direct peer protection products and make it affordable to the underserved markets. And this is something that is very resonating to our friends and to our colleagues. And that's why we work so hard to try to make a positive difference. And one of the advice is, it's okay that you haven't found your calling. It's okay that you don't have one. Life is a journey. So take your time. Sometimes during your internship, you don't find out what you like. You actually find out what you don't like. Just keep experimenting. Maybe by the method of elimination, you might find out who you really are and what actually inspired you to do.
Thank you, Fred. So how about your experience, your rewarding aspects for you, Victor?
Yeah, I mean, I echo Fred, is making a difference in not just the community, but with people's lives. Our business, we were founded on the idea that we can use technology to make an impact on income inequality. So Gini, as you may know, is the measure of income inequality among a society. So everything that we've done, we have strived to help normal people, normal companies become better, become more profitable, grow more quickly. And that has been the most exciting and enriching thing for me, is speaking with customers, talking about how we can help them, improve their businesses. Just today, I spoke with customers in New Zealand, in Australia, in Singapore, and in Hong Kong, right? Our customers are global. And that is so interesting that I'm able to speak with people from all different countries, but also notice that there are similar needs that everyone has across the globe. Whether you're an accountant, whether you're running a food and beverage company, whether you're running a SaaS software company, there's so many interesting similarities between all these businesses. So for me, it's really working with customers, learning about their needs and helping them solve these pain points that is so enriching for me. And the cool thing is that in our business right now, we're working with founders and entrepreneurs. So people like myself, so I feel like I'm almost talking to my friends and able to help my friends. And one thing that was really funny, I was thinking about is when I first met Fred, actually, it was at Cyberport, I think 4 or 5 years ago, and we were both in the same Cyberport class. And I didn't know Fred at the time, but we sit next to each other and we became, just acquaintances, just talking. And now 4 years later, I'm talking to another entrepreneur, someone who is now so famous. I see him on the Cyberport, on the bus ad now. But it's really exciting to be able to work with founders and entrepreneurs and understand, their problems and make a difference in their business.
Thank you, Victor. Both of you have really meaningful exposure. So let's move to the next part. So for this part, we are going to ask questions that are more specific to the fintech industry. This section will actually, I think, is extremely valuable to students, as not many of them have the opportunities to have real life experience, like working experience in fintech at this stage. So it will be really good for them to learn from Fred's and Victor's sharing. So diving into our topic today, I'd like to start by inviting Fred to share with us the disruptive influence of fintech and its future growth in Hong Kong, and how do fintech companies differ from traditional financial services companies in terms of vision or corporate structure and work culture.
Sure. I will focus on insurance tech because that's our focus. The way we look at this is now it's 2022, but we're still selling insurance one-to-one, face-to-face. If you look around, most of the financial services have moved online. Banking, lending, payments. Insurance is always very behind. It's an industry that hasn't really changed. If you look at the digital adoptions, basically in terms of how many people who buy life or health insurance online, it's probably less than 5%. But if you look at any surveys, for the people, especially in the younger generation that are so used to buying everything online, the result will come out saying at least 50% or 60% of people who are interested in buying life or health insurance online. So that gap is actually a big opportunity for us. I would say the current experience is quite expensive if we just rely on human agents to sell insurance, and at the same time, it's quite outdated. So both High, we are a virtual insurance company. We focus on health insurance. We provide a platform so that you can access the health insurance directly and instantly. So basically, you can just go online and look at all the prices to apply, go through the underwriting claims on your smartphones. The people who come to Bow Tie tend to be the people who like to do their own research. They like to compare with what they buy. So when we look at do some of the user survey, we realize that the people who come to Bow Tie usually the young and tech savvy segments, and these are the people who don't want people to sell them. They want to spend the time to really understand it and buy it online so that they can save some costs and save some time. And I would say overall, the fintech industry, there's a lot of opportunity and lots of positive trends. If you look back, right, in the last few years, the regulation developments facilitate the fintech developments. issue 8 new virtual bank license, 4 virtual insurer license. There are lots of capital being deployed to invest into the fintech industry, and there are lots of talent joining this. So the culture is interesting because for us, I would say we have a hybrid culture. So we have half of the people are coming from the insurance industry. So these are the specialists, these are the actuaries, claims, accountants, people who really understand insurance very well, fit and proper. So tends to be people who have around 5 to 15 years experience. And the other half of the company for us is these are the talent coming from the startups. So these are people who are doing branding, engineering, design, UX. So when these two group of people work together, it's a very interesting situation because sometimes they fight all the time because they speak different languages. But at the same time, because they all coming from a different perspective, coming with different expertise, so they always make the solution better and simpler. And that's one of the reasons why I enjoy working here, because I get to learn from the expert and also listen to the fresh perspective from the startup talent. And for us to elaborate a bit more, we do have a lot of professional actuaries, engineers, and medical doctors. And these are the people who have been working in the industry for quite a bit of time, but they realize the industry hasn't really changed. So they come up with a strong purpose. They want to make a difference. So that is really differentiating us from others. And as for interns, we do take a lot of interns. Typically, intern join us in the last year because regardless of what program they did, it's quite common that they usually try doing internship in other bigger company. And in the last internship, they tend to try something new. And that's why we do attract quite a number of actual science or engineering and some of the marketing interns to join us to be able to apply what they learn in other industry and able to try working in the fintech startups. And some of them actually join us for full time. So it's something that is quite an interesting journey for them.
Thanks for sharing. So I see like within the fintech ecosystem, there is a cluster of stakeholders and like bringing innovations to the next level. Okay, so following Fred's introduction, we know that the fintech ecosystem has rapidly evolved. The applications and technologies applicable across the financial sector. So with this in mind, would you, like for Victor, would you please share with us what are some of the sectors that fall under the fintech spectrum, and what are some of the jobs available in this emerging field?
Yes, well, I mean, the truth is that fintech is a very broad term. You know, I mean, there are things in fintech that appear to not have anything to do with finance, but is actually part of fintech. Examples of this include things like data science, you know, AI. Traditionally, the reason why fintech companies have an advantage over traditional financial services companies is that there's a lot of regulations in financial services. And this means that the traditional companies are very slow, right? They are very big. They have a lot of people managing regulations and paperwork and things like that. And the truth is that, you know, a lot of them are very well capitalized. The thing that fintech companies and startups in general have as an advantage is they can move quickly. So that means, you know, in whatever field in fintech, these fintech companies can come in, create something very quickly, very simply, but avoid all of the red tape and regulations that exist. And so so there are many segments within even larger, you know, sectors like banking, for example. Banking is a very big sector. There are many things inside there that are opportunities for fintech, things like payments, things like data analytics, data science. You know, for an example, you know, one of the first technologies that we developed in our company is to take the transactions from your bank statement and turn them into real store names and store logos. And that's very good for customer experience, but also is actually a data science exercise where you're taking, you know, dirty data and turning it into something structured so that it can be used for machine learning and AI. So, you know, those kinds of concepts can be adapted across the entire fintech or financial services field, from insurance to regulations to wealth management, right? These kinds of little things can make a big impact. In terms of what are the sectors, there are things that are new in financial services that take a long time to be regulated. So there are very big opportunities there. Obviously, crypto, blockchain, these are things that in the news, these are big opportunities. These are what investors want to finance and fund right now. So there's a lot of these kinds of companies right now. Payments is something that banks will pay for. So there's an opportunity there as well. InsurTech, Bowtie and Fred are at the forefront of that, but that is also a heavily regulated industry that can be streamlined and done more efficiently with technology. Regulations, I mentioned, there are many ways to improve the processes that a company like a financial service company must do in order to become more efficient. Wealth management, robo-advisors, these are all things that seem simple to us, like an app that helps you create a portfolio, but these are very complicated. And within these types of companies in these sectors, there's many jobs that are important for finance grads and accounting grads, right? So, at the end of the day, you might think that actually, I need to be a coder or an engineer in order to get a job at a fintech company. But the reality is that, engineers and coders, they don't know finance. They don't know accounting, right? And these are rules, there are experiences. These are things that are not easy to know. So, in any fintech company, they need to hire not just, these technical engineering types, but also administrative personnel that can manage their own company's own regulations, right? And also on the product side, we're seeing a lot more finance graduates who are involved with the creation of new products. And that's because there are many things that require the experience and knowledge of finance people. For us in particular, we're working with small businesses, startups, and with their own data, right? And so we hire a lot of masters of finance, accounting grads that are helping our product team create actual tools that are beneficial for companies around the world. So, there's a lot of opportunities in this field for people who are not just, computer scientists, but financial scientists as well.
Thank you, Victor. So from your sharing, we understand that fintech and traditional industry are actually complementary to each other, taking the development of both the next level. So for the next question, I'll go back to Fred. Can you share with us the benefits and also advantages of a career in fintech, and are there hard and soft skills and knowledge acquired transferable across different sectors of the fintech industry?
Yeah, I really think tech is the future, and fintech is such a fast-growing industry. Again, if you look at all the new virtual banks and virtual insurer, that in combined, it might create more than 2,000 to 3,000 jobs. It's really a fast-growing industry, and there's a lots of opportunity because tech is it's moving so quickly. And if I'm just graduate, right, if you get a chance to work in something new, and I would definitely choose that because fintech is so new that with all these new applications, cutting edge technologies, I felt that no one can really claim to be an expert in this field. If you're willing to invest and willing to put a lot of effort to learn, you might be the expert in the next 5 or 10 years in a relatively short period. In terms of the technical domain that you pick up, whether it's transferable, right? I would say both are transferable in terms of the tech skills and the finance skills that you pick up. The people who work in our firm, the insurance domain expertise they pick up, the claim, the underwriting, all these things is the same. They can easily find another job in other insurer. The tech experience they pick up in terms of product development, the user experience, how do you build a brand, how do you put the product market fit, all these things that we face as startups. These are very similar in other startups. So so for those people who decide to move on to other company, I would say a lot of them actually go to other fintech startups, even though it may not be insurance tech. But now all these skill sets they pick up, especially engineering, is such a global talent. You can easily find a job in not just Hong Kong but anywhere to apply the coding skill set, to apply the problem solving skill set, in other fintech sectors. And of course, some of them do go back to insurance company working in the digital team. But every time when they move on, I can see that it's actually a good. They do see a lot of opportunity, and it's such a market where it's in hot demand, which I found because people working here has been learning so much. So I found that the development is great.
Thank you. It's great to know that the skill set are transferable, so it creates a favorable condition, especially for students who might want to gain more exposures and do not want to limit themselves in a certain industry. So for Victor, the startup ecosystem in Hong Kong is getting more robust and vibrant, especially in the fintech industry. So what are the major differences, for example, like the pros and cons between working in a startup and an established corporation in the fintech industry?
Yeah, well, I think that's honestly working in established industry is probably more safe, right? We have a lot of, you know, and I understand that's an important thing for everyone is to have, like, to work for a big company is always more secure, but you're going to have many difficulties there. You're going to grow slowly, and everything is going to, you know, kind of just be difficult, right? Like, we've worked with a number of financial institutions before, some very large banks, and you know, it takes 1 year to make a decision in a big bank, and it takes 1 more year to get the decision approved. And in those 2 years, you know, the whole thing can be scrapped, and you have to start all over on a new project, right? Or the whole department is gone, or you get shifted over. So things happen very slowly. But yeah, you get a salary and you get a really nice benefits package, but do you grow much? Maybe not, right? I mean, it depends on how ambitious you are as a corporate officer. And there are many opportunities, but I think for personal growth, it is really one of the best ways for a person to grow their skills and grow their knowledge. We've had a lot of staff in our company come from, you know, financial institutions that have gone on to do things that they never thought that they would do professionally. So we've had one of our key staff that we had for several years came from a bank, came to work with us, and she said, hey, my dream is not to work at the bank, is to be a product manager. I want to make products. And during that time, she was here, we trained her 2 years. You know, she was a product manager by then. And, you know, after that, she was so marketable that a startup in Singapore came and stole her from us, right? And now she's already 2 jobs from that. And so I think that, you know, to echo what Fred was saying, is that the major differences, I think, are really about growth, right? And really about development of your skills and talents. At a startup, you need to interact with the design team. You need to interact with engineers. You need to learn about the entire package. And then you focus on your own kind of skills, your own little package. And that experience is so broad that it's so useful in other industries and other startups. So I think if you're looking to grow as a professional, and to increase your skills, or to even do a career change, startup is the way to go. But if you're looking for security, you know, a good job, but that's maybe has a ceiling, you know, big company is probably the way to go there.
I think Victor's answer did help to address like the students' struggling points and also uncertainties whether to join like established corp or like startup or like into the fintech industry. Thank you, Victor. So in general, what parts of the job do your employees, in particular like junior staff, find most challenging? When people leave their career, what are the usual reasons? Maybe we could start with Fred first.
I think one of the challenging part is in a startup, sometimes the role and the process is not that well defined. It's not like a big corporate where, okay, for these tasks, there's very good documentations. And the problem that we face are very new, because, you know, for startup, we're trying to design something new, right? So the problem solving skills is more important. We need people who are asking more fundamental questions. For example, like, you know, what is the product propositions? How should we position ourselves in the market? How do you build a brand? A lot of things don't have any guidelines. So when we hire people, especially juniors, it's not easy to approach every problem from first principle. Sometimes when you work in a bigger corporations, there might be a manual where you can follow, a lot of previous case where you can follow. But I would say it's a lot more challenging, but at the same time rewarding to work on these kind of new problem, get to apply their creativities and get to apply what they learned in the past to deal with this. So I would say for people who leave, I think it depends. We have seen some people who are joining from the big corp to startups, and they felt that it's not meant for them. It's a very different environment. They might think it's not a structure. But for people who leave, as I mentioned before, they tend to either go back to big corporates or go back to startup. But usually for us, I think more people go back to startup than big corporate. But so far, I think we are proud to say that we don't have a lot of turnover. So people who would work in both high tend to love staying here. So we don't have much problem for that one.
Thank you, Fred. I think Victor also shared some of the challenges in the last question. Do you have anything to supplement, for example, in terms of when people leave their career, what are the reasons behind?
For us, I think the challenging thing sometimes, I think Fred is exactly correct. The structure is very different from a larger company. But most of the time when people leave their careers, they leave. I mean, not when they leave career, but they leave our company is because someone of them has offered them a higher salary, right? So that is a challenge for us as a startup. We cannot pay the big bucks that a bigger or more established company can offer. So that's usually the biggest reason why people leave is that they find a more profitable, more higher paying opportunity. But that only came because we trained them. Right, and we accept that, right? So for us, we're as much teachers as we are builders of tools and marketers and sellers of products, right? So we expect that we expect that talent comes into our door, and we train them, and we want to keep them, and the best people we will pay and we will keep them to the best of our ability. But you can't do that with every staff member, right? So I think that is the biggest thing for us is that. Because the technology industry is so fast moving and there's so much demand for talent that we need to make sure that, as much as we're teaching people and helping people grow, is that we're able to, retain the best people as well. So we're like a football club, but we're not Manchester City. We're one of the ones in the middle, right? So we need to keep, we want to keep the best players, but we know we cannot keep every player.
Thank you, Fred, and thank you, Victor. So it is really great for students to learn about the challenges of the industry so that they can make a balanced judgment whether or not to join this industry. So next we'll move to more practical and realistic sharing about the career advice. The first one we'd like to ask what skills, abilities, and personal attributes are essential to success in the fintech field. Perhaps Fred could start first.
Sure, I will keep it short. I think the fintech is such a new industry. I think the growth mindset is very important. To me, one of the most important skill set you learn at school is the ability to learn. In the early days for me, right, I complete 8 professional exams to become an actuary. And by now, I think I might have forgotten all the advanced calculus or stochastic modeling, but I can still apply my learning ability to learn what I need to learn. For example, if I learn how to set a company, how to do marketing, how to do fundraising. So it's important that if you work in fintech, just keep learning. We just recently hired a software engineers. He actually self-taught himself coding for 2 years, and then he joined us. So he didn't graduate with technical major, but because now internet, you can access to all the informations. If you're willing to learn, if you're curious, you can learn so much different topic. You can master anything, and then do well in the fintech industry.
So Victor, do you share the same views like Fred?
Yes, being able to learn and being a self-development specialist, able to improve your skills is very, very important. But on the other hand, also being able to think critically and offer different ideas is very important as well. I think one of the issues sometimes we face with fresh grads is that they just say, yes, I will do it. Yes, good idea, right? But actually, that's not useful for us as a fintech startup, right? We're looking for people who can say, I have another idea that might be better, right? Or to offer like a viewpoint that, might be something that we didn't think of. So being able to offer critical thinking and different perspectives is something that we really value. I mentioned earlier that we have a team of, masters of finance students that we're having to build our product. And if it wasn't for them coming up with new ideas for how we do different things, we would be a lot slower and a lot less developed than we are. But we rely on people's ideas and their ability to think critically, and also their boldness, their lack of fear, right? It's okay to be wrong. It's okay to take risks. And that's what I want to, challenge students as they come out into, the workforce, is that, employers, there are some employers that really want you just to say, yes, sir, right? And do what they say. But for startups, we depend on every staff member to be operating at their highest intellectual and highest effort capacity. So please, be bold, give us your ideas, be critical. Maybe there's something that we didn't think of. So I encourage people to really, speak up.
So may I further ask, like, Victor, do you have any preference when you hire, for example, like, do you prefer students with finance, like economics or tech-related degrees, or do you prefer students with like perfect skill set or with an innovative mindset?
Well, it depends on the job, right? Depends on the role. For engineering roles, you want to hire engineers, right? Or computer science majors. But like Fred mentioned, we hire computer scientists that are self-taught as well, right? The important thing is to be inquisitive and to be a self-learner. So, on our tech team, one of our most senior technologists, he never even went to university, right? And he's one of the most senior people that we have. Our CTO, he didn't even study computer science. He studied aeronautical engineering, right? And so, you don't need to exactly be from a certain study or major in order to land a role somewhere. At the same time, we need people with the finance degree. We have finance product people. We have people in admin that are finance majors, finance graduates. We have people who, after their first job was at KPMG, and now they're working with us, right? So we need people of all different skill sets. But at the end of the day, we want people who are hardworking and, inquisitive and want to grow themselves. So it's getting a job right out of university helps to have the right major. But after that, you can go in many different directions. So, your path is what you choose it to be.
How about Fred? Do you have like things to share for this question?
I echo what Victor said. Depends on the job. At the same time, one example I gave you is in the early days when we started our first company, we actually hired lots of young actuaries, and we cross-trained them to do engineering. It's pretty good because they understand the insurance side, they understand the math, and they also can pick up some web technologies. And that is a very good example where if you invest your time, since you already understand the insurance side, for you to understand to pick up some technologies, that combined skill set can be very, very powerful. Because you have the domain, you have the technology, and I think that is like the one of the most important. The way to look at new talent now is to have that cross-discipline, cross-domain expertise. You might think, oh, is it possible? For us, because we just focus on simple production products, sometimes I would say the learning curve is actually doable, because for the product that we handle, the system that we handle, it's actually, if we keep the product simple, it's actually not that complex. So the people who work in our area are able to have a much better visibility towards across different domains. And I would say that skill set is important.
Thank you. So before moving to the Q&A section, like what advice would you give to like anyone considering starting a career in fintech? Perhaps Victor could share like a line with the participants.
I believe that, you should be bold. I mentioned that earlier. Be excited, be bold, give your best ideas. Employers, they don't want just a yes man, right? They want someone who will bring something to the table. And, at the end of the day, if you can bring like the qualities that are unique to you and bring something interesting to the company, that is what is most important. One thing we didn't talk, I know you are mostly financial services people, but one thing that I think people of all different departments can use is more interpersonal skills as well, right? One of the biggest problems that we have in these technology companies is sometimes people don't communicate well together. Engineering team doesn't work well with product team, doesn't work well with finance team. And we didn't even mention anything about marketing and sales today, right? But actually marketing and sales skills, not just the creation of graphics or ad buying, but interpersonal skills of selling, of knowing what do people want, right? And really relating on a personal level to your customers. That is something that I think everyone in this room should really think more about how they can achieve, because fintech is really about making products that can help people more than the financial products out there are doing already, right? So being empathetic, being able to communicate, being not just to your coworkers, but to your customers, I really think that is something that if you can, learn and improve on, that's useful for any career in any departments in fintech.
Thank you, Victor. So Fred, do you have advice to share with our audience?
Be a problem solvers. Again, what we do is very new. Don't just follow the process. Don't just follow the procedures. Really understand what you're doing, why you're doing it, and you might find a better way, a more effective way to solve the problem. And this is important because we tried before. We hired some interns to solve a new problem. When someone who just followed procedures and don't do research, for someone who actually can break the case, the difference is not just 20%. It can be a 10 times difference. Someone who just stuck and never be able to solve that, and someone who can able to do the research, look into different cases, come up with different rationale why and how to do it. You want to be the person who is a problem solving rather than just following procedures. And especially again in fintech domain, everything is new. So you want to be creative and you want to stay curious.
That's really helpful and useful tips for our participants. So thank you, Fred and Victor, for sharing your experience and insight in the two areas. So we'll now move on to questions from the audience. From one of our participants, he's asking based on between title and also duty, which side should we choose for now? Perhaps maybe Victor could address the question first.
Well, of course it's duty, right? Because titles, I don't know exactly how it is in big companies, but to me, titles are meaningless. They're pointless, honestly. Like if someone comes to me and says, "Oh, can you give me this title?" I say, "Yeah, you can have it. I don't care." Right? You keep the same pay, you do the same job, but you want a different title. Yeah, just take it. It means nothing to me what the title is as long as you do the job. Maybe it means something to you for your next job, right? And that is an important factor that only you can understand. But at the end of the day, what will make you more marketable in the long term is having the skills that will get you to where you want to go, right? And the title is, I've met a lot of people with very fancy titles, and I kind of, it's okay, but I don't want to say bad things about people, but at the end of the day, I've seen people with, lesser titles that are so smart, so, brilliant and inspiring, and they create wonderful products. And it's not even about age. It's not about title. It's about yourself and your skills and your intelligence and your output, your heart, right? At the end of the day, I would pick duty over title in any situation.
So Fred, do you have anything to add on to like this?
No, it's the same. I think what you learn is more important than the title, and even I feel like it's more important than what you get paid. Like when you before 30s, I think the most important part is how much do you learn. If you keep learning, if you keep growing, you will go very fast. You will go very far. And title doesn't matter. But they also remind me when I first graduated, remember one of my friend got a title as a director and I got a title as an analyst. But it doesn't matter, at the end it doesn't matter.
So may I further ask Fred, like one of the participants is asking, like within fintech, there is the finance part and also technology part. Which one do you think is more important?
Important? Well, both are important. It depends on the role, right? You have to understand both sides. But some people may be coming from a finance major, insurance major. In insurance, like you might have a better sense of understanding of the product, what the customer needs. But for you to learn tech, it doesn't mean you have to learn coding, right? I think we're all user of different apps. We are all heavy mobile user. You can also comment on the user experience. You can also comment on whether this is a good experience for you. I would say at the end, you need to understand both sides. But make sure that the advisor I would give is when you're young, it's good to do everything. So you sort of have a wider widen your exposure, but at some point you should have your expertise. So develop a domain that you're really good at. People know you for that domain, and later on you go broader again because you become a management. You have to oversee many different functions. So I would say that is like kind of like the pattern that I would suggest for the career advice.
Thank you. So do many of the employees in your company have a master degree? Because one of the participants is asking whether a master degree is compulsory to join the fintech industry.
Yeah, for us, and that is not compulsory. Like we hired them. We hire some master's students because actually it's not because that they have the degree, it's that they actually had experience, right? So the people that we hire, we value much more their experience and what their knowledge than their degree. It just so happens that the people we hired have that experience. And, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's really about your experience and your knowledge that's most important. To the other question, what's more important in fintech between finance and technology? To echo Fred, both are important. But one thing I would say is that, finance is, if you end up working in a product role, you're making some product, right? You're like a builder, you're creating things, whereas if you're in a finance in a bank, maybe you're crunching numbers or you're being some type of, just something in the machine. When you're thinking about like in the technology company, in fintech in particular, what is the most important part? It's going to be the product. So I think that if you want to grow in the product or technology world, stick with technology. But it depends on what path you want to take and what direction you want your career to go. Sometimes I think about technology, and in the same amount of time that someone in the past can build a building, right? Just to put the one brick, pouring cement, you can now build an empire that's worth 10 buildings, right? Like a piece of software is like the new building, right? And if you can make something like that and last for a long time, there's so much value to that. And that's something that I would, encourage you all to think about is what is going to be the main lasting force when it comes to business.
Thank you. So there are some concerns from students as when they apply for fintech company, as they are from a pure finance background. So they're asking if it is really difficult for like finance student without IT background to enter fintech industry. But I think like both of you did address that in fintech industry, you need like talents from both the finance side and also the IT side. But maybe could you share some like difficulties of finance, pure finance students may have to and may encounter in joining the fintech industry, so as to like an advice tips for them to get them more prepared?
I can say something. I think, again, back to depends on the role. If you want to apply for engineering jobs, that will be tougher because you have to learn coding, you have to have some experience. But you can always join a fintech company in the other side, right? Working in the product side, in the finance side, because you understand the financial product better. So you might end up landing in that side job, in that side of the workforce. And during those periods, trying to pick up other technology skill set. And if you eventually want to work in a more tech or analytical focus duty, then maybe that might be a first step, and then you move to other sectors. Other function within the company. It's very common for people to move around within fintech because again, the role and process are not super well defined sometimes as a startups. So if you are proactive, you can get a chance to work on many different type of projects, and if you're willing to learn, you can learn very quickly. So don't just limit yourself. I would say if you really want to get into the industry, start with just join the company first. Join the company that you like. Start with one area, and then learn as much as you can, and try to move on to other functions.
Thank you. Hector, do you have anything to supplement on this?
Fred is correct. People jump around different roles all the time. The important thing is to think about what contribution you can make, right? And you as an individual, obviously having some degree in finance is useful, but what is it useful for? If there's a job function in the finance department, like a big, startup that has a lot of cash management or fundraising or, these kinds of, regulatory issues. Yeah, bachelor's of finance, any finance degree is really helpful. But does it mean that you can only do that? It does not mean that. You can jump around, you can learn new things, you can reinvent yourself. So we have a lot of finance majors that actually become product people, helping to create products, but they're using their finance knowledge. So it's really about how can you make a contribution with the knowledge you have and the experiences that you have.
Thank you. We'll come to the last question as we have time constraint for this one. We would like to ask whether like your company or the industry is currently facing a shortage in talent, because I think this is kind of an opportunity for students. And like, what are the major challenges for hiring, and like what functions are you looking to hire in the next like 12 or like 36 like in the short term? Maybe Fred could share with us first.
Well, the top priority is always engineering. The good engineering talents is always hard. So if there's any engineering students, feel free to come and apply. We always look for good engineers. And second, I would say is people who we always need talent who can help us grow. So either in digital marketing or in the growth side, either have the marketing sense or analytical sense. I would say both are important.
Thank you. How about you, Victor?
Yeah, I mean, almost exactly the same. We're probably going for the same candidates, Fred. Yeah. But for us, engineering is so important, right? Like we are, we use our tech team is very advanced, and unfortunately, that means when we hire junior people, they have to learn very quickly, and they need to have like a very good baseline. So we have, as a startup, we do not have the resources to hire all the best people in Hong Kong. So we look overseas. Our tech team is globally distributed. We have our CTO. He's actually a Hong Kong person, but now he lives overseas, and he's working on a beach somewhere, but he's fully integrated into our system. And then we have, some engineers in Hong Kong, some in China, some in Indonesia, and they're all communicating all in real time, right? We have, and so that's something that we really need a lot more of. So, I know that a lot of finance people are very technical. So if you're able to code, I would say that actually your career prospects are very good. And I wanted to emphasize to people in this forum is that you don't need to be a computer programmer by training to be a computer programmer. There are so many people that have done boot camps or have done these like trainings, like 3 to 6 months training, and they can get a job as a software engineer right away. One of my best friends, she was an accounting major. And she was actually working for me in my old company. And then she said, "Oh, I'm going to take a boot camp." She did the boot camp. I was a little bit skeptical, but within 1 month of graduating, she got a job as a computer engineer, software engineer, and now she's an engineering lead, and she manages a team, and she's making much more money than she would have ever done as an accountant. So, I encourage, all of you who are, finance students to think about not just, a career in finance, but growing your own abilities through self-teaching or through these boot camps in computer engineering to grow, your career prospects. And the truth is that around the world, the computer engineers are making more money than the finance people, right? So, and in a fintech company, if you have the bachelor's of finance, I keep saying masters, I mean like any finance degree, and then you also have the engineering talents, even if you are self-taught, you are highly marketable. So that's something I want to emphasize. And again, growth, sales is something people kind of look down on sometimes, but sales skills are so important. Being able to grow a company and actually bring customers into the door is so important. So I would say these are the roles that we're hiring for as well right now.
Thank you, Victor. So this brings us to the end of this webinar. I would like to thank Fred and Victor again for having such an open discussion, and I'm sure audience would find it inspiring and useful. So we wish you're able to get some insight and also have some key takeaways from this webinar, and hopefully could help you with your career planning and also advancement. So before the end of the webinar, we would like to invite participants to fill out the survey graphs and give us some comments about the arrangement of this webinar in order to have improvement. So please stay tuned to our next webinar events that are going to be hosted by the FSDC. Thank you, Fred and Victor, again for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye.